If you're American and you've been watching what's happening in the world lately, rising political uncertainty, higher taxes, banking concerns, global instability, immigration backlogs, increasing restrictions on movement, then this conversation is for you. Because today I want to talk about something that has become one of the biggest conversations among successful American families, entrepreneurs, and investors. And that is what is happening with the Portugal Golden Visa in 2026, and does it still make sense? Now, recently, Portugal officially approved amendments to its nationality law, and naturally, people panicked. Headlines started saying Portugal closed the path, citizenship delayed, Golden Visa is over. But the reality is much more nuanced than the headlines. So in this video, I want to explain what actually changed, what did not change, and why many Americans are still moving forward with Portugal despite the new rules. Because in my opinion, most people are asking the wrong question. The question is not, can I get a passport faster? The real question is, do I have a long-term global strategy for my family? And for many Americans, Portugal still answers that question extremely well. Now, before we continue, my name is Tatiana Mantin, founder of Global Freedom Capital, a US-based advisory firm specializing in global mobility and investment migration strategies for international families. And let's begin. So what exactly changed? Under the new law, Portugal increased the legal residence requirement for citizenship. Previously, many investors viewed Portugal as a potential 5-year pathway toward citizenship. Now, the expected timeline has effectively moved closer to 10 years for most non-European applicants, including Americans. For EU nationals and citizens of Portuguese-speaking countries, the timeline may be around 7 years. For everyone else, including most US investors, it is expected to be approximately 10 years from the issuance of the first residency card. Now, this sounds dramatic at first, but here is what many people are missing. The Golden Visa itself did not disappear. Portugal did not cancel the residency program. The benefits of the residency remain almost entirely intact. And honestly, for many American families, residency was always the real value. Let me explain. If you're an American entrepreneur, investor, business owner, or family office, your life is already international. Your wealth may be in the US. Your business may operate globally. Your children may study internationally. Your investments may span multiple jurisdictions. So the question becomes, how do you create optionality? How do you create flexibility? How do you create a plan B without uprooting your entire life? And that is exactly why Portugal became so attractive. Because unlike many immigration systems, Portugal allowed people to maintain a very low physical presence requirement. We are talking about approximately 7 days per year, not 7 months. Not full relocation, 7 days, which means many Americans could maintain their businesses, homes, and tax lives in the United States while building a long-term foothold in Europe. And that part remains extremely attractive. Now, another important point, permanent residency is becoming a much bigger conversation. Because after the initial Golden Visa period, many applicants are expected to transition into permanent residency. And permanent residency in Portugal is still incredibly valuable. Why? Because it provides stability, it provides long-term access to Europe, it allows families to maintain flexibility. And importantly for many Americans, it generally does not require becoming a tax resident simply because you hold residency status. Of course, every tax situation is different and people should always work with qualified legal and tax advisors. But structurally, many Americans are not moving to Portugal to avoid taxes. They are moving to create options. That's a huge difference. Now let's talk honestly about why this matters so much right now for Americans specifically. For decades, Americans viewed the US passport as enough, and it still remains one of the strongest passports in the world. But something changed after COVID. People realize that governments can close borders, policies can shift quickly, banking systems can tighten, political climates can become unpredictable. And wealthy families began thinking differently, not emotionally, strategically. They began asking, what happens if I want my children to study in Europe? What happens if healthcare systems become difficult? What happens if political polarization increases? What happens if taxes rise significantly? What happens if I simply want more freedom of movement later in life? And suddenly, residency programs stopped being luxury products. They became strategic assets, almost like insurance, not because people necessarily want to leave America, but because they want options. And this is something I discuss with clients every single week. Many Americans today are not running away from the United States. They still love America. But they no longer want all of their life exposure concentrated in one jurisdiction. That mindset has changed dramatically. Now, another question I receive constantly is, Tatiana, if citizenship now takes 10 years, is Portugal still worth it? And my answer is, for many people, yes, because the European lifestyle value alone can justify this strategy. Let's think about this. Portugal offers safety, climate, healthcare, international schools, access to the Schengen zone, excellent quality of life, strong infrastructure, and access to the broader European market. For many Americans nearing retirement or raising globally minded children or building international businesses, those benefits matter today, not only in 10 years. And honestly, some clients never even plan to apply for citizenship. That surprises people. Some families simply want European residency, mobility, a long-term foothold, and optionality for future generations. That alone can justify the investment. Now, another important point, many people are focusing too much on speed and not enough on quality. Fast is not always better, especially when we are talking about international planning, family legacy, and cross-border structures. Europe is becoming more restrictive overall, not less. And I personally believe that families who already establish legal residency pathways today may be in a much stronger position years from now compared to people waiting on the sidelines. Because immigration systems rarely become easier over time. Usually the opposite happens, and we are seeing that globally. Now, let me also clarify something important. Portugal still remains one of the more flexible residency by investment programs in Europe, especially compared to jurisdictions requiring major relocation obligations or much heavier physical presence requirements. And this is why Americans continue exploring it despite the longer citizenship timeline. Now, naturally, every family situation is different. Some people may prioritize speed, others prioritize lifestyle, others prioritize education, others care about long-term diversification, others care about access to Europe. There is no universal solution. That's why proper structuring matters. And this is also why working with experienced legal and advisory teams matters more than ever. Because headlines create fear, but strategy creates clarity. And right now, clarity is incredibly valuable. So where do things go from here? The Portuguese government still has approximately 90 days to publish the implementing regulations. Those regulations may further clarify how these changes apply to ongoing applications and future applicants, so there are still moving parts. And at Global Freedom Capital, together with our legal partners in Portugal, we are closely monitoring every development. But overall, my view is this: Portugal did not disappear. The opportunity evolved, and sophisticated investors understand that long-term global positioning is rarely about shortcuts. It is about structure. It is about optionality. It is about protecting future generations. And increasingly, it is about having choices in a world that feels more uncertain every year. If you are an American investor, entrepreneur, or family currently exploring European residency options, this is the moment to approach the conversation strategically, not emotionally. Understand your goals, understand your timeline, understand your family priorities, and build accordingly. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to discuss your personal global mobility strategy, you can reach out to Global Freedom Capital. And if this video was valuable, don't forget to subscribe, share it with someone who may benefit from it, and stay tuned for more updates on global residency and citizenship strategies. Take the world, it's yours.